Hi there. I want to go over some things in Scratch so that you're better at Scratch and to cover some programming concepts that will help you when we switch to Java and object-oriented programming in a couple of weeks. First, let's start with the conceptual metaphor of Scratch. You've probably figured this out, but it's good to make it explicit. The metaphor Scratch uses is, this is a stage, and these are the sprites or actors which can perform actions upon the stage. And you can program both the stage, right? Most of you didn't add any scripts to the stage, but you can, right? You just click on the stage and do scripts. And the stage can also have different backgrounds. So I have 3 different backgrounds here. You could also have sounds attached to it. In the same way, the actors, right, can each have their own scripts. And by the way, you can do more than one script in any of these scripting areas. You don't just have to have one. They can have their own costumes and their own sounds, right? So that's the overriding metaphor. Let's go back to the stage. I like to think of the stage as kind of being where the director of the story that you're telling with your program is. And so sort of this is the director's script. And then the director will talk to each of the actors and have them perform their scripts. This is especially, if you want to do things in sequence, this is a good way to do it. So I'm going to skip over these orange blocks for just a second. These are just blocks for setting variables, and we'll talk about that. But we're going to come down to this section. So how does the director talk to the actors? Well, Scratch is pretty clunky this way. And when we get to object-oriented programming, you will see that a big part of object-oriented programming is having the actors send messages to each other, and there are lots of ways to do that, but you'll find it's much more sophisticated than what Scratch provides. The people who made Scratch up at MIT deliberately kept it simple because it was originally targeted towards young kids. They do plan in the future to make it easier to have the director communicate with the actors. But this is how it's done now, right? So what you can do is you can broadcast a message. And this message goes out to all of your sprites. So all of these actors receive this message. And what you have to do is set the when I receive box at the top of block, not box, when I receive block at the top of the sprite, and then have it say choose the message, the broadcast message that it will respond to. So when back here the stage sends out broadcast the message box, the message actually goes out to all 3 sprites, but only sprite 2 has when I receive the box message, do my stuff, right? Sprite 3 says when I receive the box 2 method, do my stuff. And as you might guess, sprite 4 says when I receive the box 3 message, I'll do my stuff. Okay? So now we have a way, clunky as it is, for the director to control the actors and say, okay, now you're on stage, you do your stuff. All right, now let's talk a bit about the variables. These guys are essentially all set to do the same thing, which you'll see in just a second. But if I actually, every place you see the orange rounded rectangles here, Oh, by the way, this is a bit of computer science trivia. It's actually Stephen Jobs and the original Macintosh team that realized the importance of the rounded rectangle as a distinct object from the rectangle. As you'll see, the rounded rectangle, which has curves, or this is an unrounded rectangle. Rounded rectangle is used for lots of different things. We see it here, we see it in this window, right? So it's actually an interesting bit of computer trivia, and maybe in the future you'll notice how often rounded rectangles, here they are again, are used. All right, so these guys, the variables, I could have constants here. I could have just literal values, right? I could have 75 and 98. Problem is that if I want the director, once I've written the script, then the director wouldn't be able to tell the different actors, hey, I actually want you to change your position, or I want you to change this size variable, or how many, this size variable, or this wait time, or this new size ratio. Any of these orange rounded rectangles, which you see also up here, with their actual values, right? These I would have to go in to the actual script for each of the sprites and change them. Because I've set these up as variables here under the control of the director can set these, right? And then when each sprite, I'm going to stop for a second and come back. Okay, that was a phone call from Con Edison, or somebody trying to get me to switch some other energy provider, electrical stuff. So these variables can be set right here. And then when each sprite does its thing, instead of having those values hard-coded, they look up here, right? They say, okay, when I move size steps, I'm going to move that number, 45. Or if I move to a horizontal position and vertical position, I'll look up here to find out what these values are, and that's what I'll move to. So that gives the director some control of what the sprites do without going in and actually modifying each sprite each time you want to make that change. So let's quickly look at what this does. And here are sprites sort of on the edge of the stage ready to perform. Here we'll make them perform. So the first thing this script does is asks the length of the side, length of side. That needs to be fixed, but I'll fix that later. So I'll do 50 and hit return. And the orangey scratch cat comes and draws a whole bunch of increasingly smaller triangles. And then the blue scratch cat does, and then the green scratch cat does. Okay? And those are the scripts that each of these cats, the scratch cats, have, right? And they're all identical except for this first line, right? Which allows them to be, it allows the director to talk to them individually. The last line here, set size to answer. Okay, so answer is a variable too. It's just a sort of a default variable that you don't have to declare, which Scratch gives you when you use the ask block. So whatever answer is typed, let's fix this now, in, I used to have length of side of square, but then I made it so it could make different things like triangles. When I fixed it, I didn't fix it correctly. Anyway, that's what that's about. So, yeah, so these guys can Oh, right. So sorry. So the ask command, whatever the user types in that dialog box that appears down here is stored in the variable answer, right? And we can actually, if we want to, we can have, let's see, sensing, yes, we can have the answer variable appear up here. We could have that appear. All of these variables can, if you don't want them to appear up there, you can just click here. So under the variables, you can hide them or show them. It's up to you. Okay. So at any rate, why do we have size set to answer? Well, we're actually changing the starting size of the shape, which starts out at 50 because that's what I typed in, within each sprite's scripts. So when the next sprite starts up, we want size to be reset to what was originally entered, which was 50. Okay. So that's the main point I wanted to get across in this presentation. That those are the main points that I wanted to get across. That the stage metaphor with the director in the stage scripts, the director role in the stage scripts, and then the sprites playing the role of actors, which are, they have their own scripts, but the director has some control over when those scripts are executed and how they're executed by the use of variables that the director can control out here, and the sprites look at those variables to determine exactly what action they take. So just to give you an example of this, let's change the number of sides to 4 and then run this again. And same size, we'll go with 50. And now, with that one change from 3 to 4 here, each of the sprites will draw squares instead of triangles, because when they're moving, when they're running their scripts, they're looking at this variable instead of an actual number that's hard-coded into their scripts. Right? So variables allow flexibility and allow changes to be more easily made in your program. So one other thing I wanted to point out, just in case you hadn't discovered this, is if you right-click on any block and then choose Help, right, it will pop up a little window with more information about how that block works. So that can be useful as you're going along. Okay, thank you.